Hey guys, welcome back to the show. This is He. Today I will continue to talk about the complete citizen system and the rise of a divine civilization. For the complete citizen system, there's just too much to say because it is a new framework for our society. There's just too much content. And for the divine civilization, it is something that we will naturally achieve when we build a complete citizen system. So in this episode, I'm going to give you a big picture of how things will work out in the complete citizen system. New audience, old audience, thank you so much for making it here. And I really encourage you to stay for the whole video because what we are talking about here is not some distant future vision. It is something from the future, but it needs the people today to turn them into reality. I don't know if you guys ever feel that, but our world is changing rapidly. In the past few years, we've seen the wave of conservatism coming back. Like countries are sanctioning each other and putting limits on what we used to call the free trade and also immigration. And people are getting more and more uncertain about the world, because the economy is also slowing down. Meanwhile, there's the rising of AI. People now use AI to do all sorts of things. Me, for example, I use AI to generate game apps for my students to practice English. And it really surprised me when I found out that I didn't even need to consult any software developer. They just make it, and it feels like magic. Things are manifesting in a way that is faster than any generation before us. So now we are facing a very intense situation where on the one hand people are getting frustrated and overwhelmed because of this pressure of survival, and it gets worse after AI was invented. But on the other hand, people are also kind of inspired and hopeful because of AI, and it shortens the time that we used to need to create new things. So I often have this feeling that the old traditional world is fading away and the new future is drawing close. This is why our collective energy state is going through such a vibration, because in the chaos, everything is being reshuffled. We as humanity can choose to fall, but we can also choose to create something new out of it. And that better future is what we are talking about here. It matters for every one of us who is trying to live a better life. To predict the future, we need to summarize the present. Currently, we are living in an information age which makes things more transparent than ever. As a result, people are now able to see how things work and how power operates. This old aura around power and its authority is fading fast globally. People are finally able to see what the powerful people are really like behind the curtain.
St. John Fisher
And
Church in Richmond
around the
was
world, more and more people are starting to question how reasonable it is to hand the fate of a society over to a small group of people. In the history, many great people fought for equality, and some philosophers used to dream of a society where everyone gets treated equally. But these ideas remain a dream until now. This collective disenchantment of power, together with the rise of artificial intelligence, is opening a new door to a completely new era, which we call the Era of Complete Citizenship, where the brighter and more meaningful side of human nature start to rise into daylight. It is a shift in our political structure, which is very essential. In this new system, democracy is no longer just a game for the politicians and the money behind them. I've said this multiple times. People need more than just the right to vote and protest. We also need to have a say on the decisions that can shape our life and impact our future. We can't just be informed about things and let the politicians run the world. We can't, and they can't unless we allow them. We also want to make sure things are fair, but when it comes to fairness, One thing that we need to realize is that every person acts according to their own preferences and opinions. And if given the power, even the smartest people can become an autocrat. So we don't want a system that amplifies that human flaw. And the modern political systems handle this problem by dividing the politicians into different groups and making them compete with each other. This works, but it's still a game of small groups. In the complete citizen system, the power is truly returned to people. It means that everyone has the right to fully participate in the decision making and have some meaningful control over things that can impact their future. You may wonder how this works. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about this later. So moving on, it is also an update in our economic system. We know how the system is designed dictates the role people can play in a society. And in the current capitalist system, most of us are just workers for the big capital. And a lot of people are living under this constant pressure of survival and the fear of losing everything overnight, especially in America. And that is very easy. We just need an economic crisis. And this holds people back from becoming what they could be. We find it hard to imagine, to create, to chase our own dreams. And I think it greatly limits human potential. In a complete citizen system, things will change. But of course, this doesn't happen overnight. People need to stop relying on the government and unite together to solve the problems. And that requires a collective awareness. When we get sick of monopoly and the unfair distribution, we will have to do it. And then we will be able to take back our agency. It's also going to reshape our culture and our values about money, success, and investment. Because when the economic system changes, things will no longer revolve around the big capital, and the mainstream narratives will have to change too. Alongside these changes, there will also be a deep awakening of the soul, a shift of focus from personal life to the broader world, and from being governed and managed to self-autonomy, coexistence, and shared prosperity. With such a system built for the complete citizens, equality and collective well-being will no longer be a dream. They will slowly and steadily become our reality. Within the old system, it will never happen. People just spend most of their lifetime fighting for a stable living condition, and if they ever succeed, they will fight more for status. But life is short. I think if people want to make the most out of life, complete citizenship is the answer. It requires a lot of efforts from many people, but it is definitely worth it. So let me explain what would happen if we build the system in our society. It points towards two outcomes. The first one is that when people no longer need to worry about surviving, when the system supports every aspect of living, and we know that now we have enough resources and food to feed the whole planet. When that is achieved, people will be freed from this old constant fear of not having enough. Their attention will naturally turn inward, and they will begin to sense their own life, their own spirits, and their mind, their real desires, and then they will be able to connect with their inner wisdom. A new awareness will arise. In the past, this awareness is only reserved for people as great as Buddha and Jesus. But in the complete citizen system, sooner or later, everyone will be able to access to that. The second outcome is a collective awakening of the soul, where wisdom, compassion, and virtuous practice come together to drive the emergence of a divine civilization. I know this may sound incredible, but if you think about it, it is actually a natural development of the society. Imagine when most people are rational, wise, and full of love, we will be able to co-create a world that looks like a paradise. Why not? It may require the efforts of generations. But who knows, maybe in hundreds of years, this may become a reality. It just needs us to work very hard and have this ideal in our mind. When people are liberated from this fear of not getting what they want or what they need, they will become more confident and happier. They will have more inner peace, and then they will explore big questions like, who am I? Does the soul ever exist? What will happen after death? What is the purpose of my soul? These will no longer be the philosopher's questions. In fact, everyone can become a philosopher at that time. Because human beings are such animals, when our ends are met in every possible way, we will have to think about these meaningful questions, right? And I think a lot of people have asked these kind of questions at some point of their life. It's just that we have so many other important things to do, so many obligations. And the complete citizens will ask these questions constantly. The difference is they will explore these questions from a more scientific and systemic approach. There will be different kinds of practice, but they all lead to the freedom of the soul and spiritual growth. When that happens, people will be able to connect with their inner wisdom, see things from a higher and almost sacred perspective, and become more compassionate. You may call this being connected to God, or the higher self, or the divine wisdom. And some people may call it like the greater force that drives the universe. Whatever it is, it will be very common for people to have spiritual beliefs at that time. They will begin to sense the intelligence of life and universe in a way that feels both intimate and real. Sounds a bit too idealistic, right? But the major changes in the world are bringing us closer and closer to that future that we are depicting here. And we will not passively wait for that to come. Throughout the history, at every stage of human civilization, people never really get to decide their own fates. Individual fates have been closely tied to the will of the state, the elites, and people who hold economic power. Basic human rights can be taken away when there was any political struggles or economic changes, and in many ways it is still the same today. The creation of a complete citizen system changes all of that. For the first time in human history, it gives the real power back to the hands of people and make everyone able to live fully and participate in public affairs. It creates a structural connection between individual well-being and the interests of the state, society, and the government, and other social groups that help run the society. And this is not just a slogan, it is built into the system itself. And you may wonder how it works. Like, how can we make sure a system that is held by billions of people not fall into chaos? How can we make sure the resources are shared in a meaningful, fair, and accurate way? And most importantly, how can we ensure that people wouldn't make stupid decisions together? The answer is technology, especially AI and other intelligent machines. They are not here to interfere with our thinking process or replace our judgment. AI has the great potential to handle the stuff that does not need the subjective opinions from people. For example, AI is able to process huge amounts of data and list all the important facts and variables that should be taken into account when making a decision. It can prevent people from simply reacting to emotions or slogans, which greatly improves the information environment. And when the information environment improves, the quality of decision will also improve. Second, participation is responsibility-based. That means not every decision should be decided by all the people together. Citizens participate in the areas where they are informed, trained, or directly affected. Third, while education is responsible for improving people's critical thinking ability, the system itself actually rewards long-term rationality rather than short-term emotional decisions. AI can simulate outcome across time. When people can see clearly and accurately how things will play out in 5 years, 10 years, or even 20 years later, the chance that people make a stupid decision will greatly decrease. We can also use the powerful algorithm to help do the distribution job so that people can get what they need when they need it. One more aspect is that AI can take over the repetitive work in public services so that things stay stable and run smoothly for every one of us. It can also save us a lot of time that we used to waste to get the simple things done and approved. The last thing I can think of is when there is an argument or conflict between individuals or groups, AI can be the one to help sort out the details, reduce unnecessary tension, and help clear the air. The beautiful thing about AI is that it can filter out the unnecessary emotional reactions, misunderstandings, and personal bias. It is often these things that push things into big problems. So with AI, we can step in before small issues upscale. I would say the complete citizen system is something that could only emerge in the AI era. Only this level of clarity and transparency can give the foundation to the system. Otherwise, it will never happen. The system prioritizes each person's freedom and dignity. With this kind of structure, humanity finally steps out of the old traps of identity, class, religion, and capital. For the first time, we become a community with shared interests and a shared future. And in that world, a person is no longer just a replaceable part in a giant social machine. They become a whole individual, someone with inner freedom, clarity, creativity, and the ability to grow spiritually. Now, this part of the video is going to further explain what a divine civilization is. It is something that will naturally arise after the complete citizen system is built and run in the society. Basically, the entire society will no longer be organized around fear, scarcity, or a constant living pressure. And people in general will become wiser, more passionate, and be able to care deeply for themselves and also other people. Spiritual practice will become a common and integral part of people's life, just like there was a time in Indian history when people generally practice a philosophy or a special kind of yoga. At that time, the world will change, and what comes next is what we call a divine civilization. Some people may think this is nonsense, but real progress starts from imagination. In the complete citizen system, everyone is supported to unlock their potential and achieve their own happiness. And people in general will be able to develop a clearer understanding of life and universe. This is also the process of attaining wisdom, and I think this is also what the past saints like Jesus and Buddha were trying to teach us. When people no longer need to prove themselves through money, fame, and status, they will realize this game is just unimportant and temporary. And then they will invest more of their time into improving their own characters and doing things that are more meaningful. Once people connect with their soul and focus more on spiritual growth, they will have more discipline for themselves. They will know what is right and what is wrong, and also the importance of unconditional love and compassion for all the living things in the world. And that's gonna lift our civilization to a new level. People always doubt things that only exist in imagination, and they think someone else is responsible for turning that into reality. But this is not true for the complete citizen system. It requires every one of us who supports this vision to turn it into reality. The world will become a better place because of you, because of your participation. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please leave me a comment if you have any questions or any ideas to share. See you next time.